So WION live broadcast from London. I'm Oliver Regan and here are the headlines. China says it has shared all data related to COVID-19 after the World Health Organization implores Beijing to share data and access to help understand the origin of the virus. Supporters and opponents of South Korea's suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol rally near his residence in Seoul after a court approved an arrest warrant for him. South Korean authorities begin releasing the bodies of plane crash victims to their families on Tuesday as investigators race to determine the cause of the accident. Indian government says it is extending all possible help to an Indian nurse whose death sentence was recently approved by Yemen president. Pakistan says one soldier killed after clashes with the Afghan Taliban across the border. The Taliban claims casualties on the Pakistani side are much higher.
Police in Kenya's capital fired tear gas on Monday to try to disperse protesters demonstrating against what they say is a wave of unexplained abductions of government critics.
I am on my knees begging you to end this brutality.
They also detained some of those taking part in the protests in Nairobi. Human rights groups say dozens of Kenyans have been abducted in recent months. They blame the extrajudicial arrests on the country's police and intelligence services. Kenyan authorities have said that the government does not condone or engage in extrajudicial killings or abductions. Among the protesters was opposition lawmaker Okiya Omtata, who was later detained together with 10 other protesters, according to the Kenyan newspaper Daily Nation. Kenya's police did not respond to Reuters' requests for comment. The alleged abductions followed anti-government protests that started in June this year. Initially aimed at overturning proposed tax hikes, the demonstrations eventually evolved into a movement that cut across Kenya's traditional ethnic divisions and became the biggest threat to the incumbent President William Ruto's government.
The latest crackdown on women's rights in Afghanistan. The Taliban government has said it will close all national and foreign NGOs employing women in the country. The diktat was issued in a letter that the Taliban's economy ministry published on X, warning that NGOs will lose their license to operate in Afghanistan if they fail to comply with the latest order. The announcement came 2 years after they told NGOs to suspend the employment of Afghan women, allegedly because they didn't obey the dress code prescribed by the regime and didn't wear the Islamic headscarf correctly. The letter released by the Finance Ministry said that the government was once again ordering the stoppage of all female work in institutions not controlled by the Taliban. Further on, it warned that in the case of a lack of cooperation, all activities of that institution will be cancelled, along with the licence granted by the ministry. Reacting on this fresh edict, the United Nations spokesperson Florencia Soto Nino Martinez said the space for women in Afghanistan has shrunk dramatically in the last 2 years and reiterated its call for the Taliban to reverse the restrictions. Earlier, the Taliban's supreme leader banned the construction of windows in residential buildings that overlook areas used by women. The Taliban's government spokesperson said that new buildings shouldn't have windows through which the courtyard kitchen, neighbours' well and other places frequented by women are visible. Since taking power in August 2021, the Taliban has issued over 100 edicts stripping Afghan women and girls of their most basic human rights and opportunities.
व्हिडिओ अनाकडला कदाचित तसं जर घेतलं ना व्हिडिओ अनाकडला
An accident in Ethiopia killed 71 people on Sunday after a truck packed with passengers plunged into a river. Reuters arrived at the scene of the crash Monday and found people looking down at the accident site from a bridge. A local described what he saw.
It went straight to the river. Men and women. Nobody survived. Most of the bodies didn't even have complete body parts. It would have been better if all the corpses were intact. I was here at the time. We collected the bodies of men and women and loaded them onto a car.
A spokesperson for the Sidama regional government said local traffic police had reported the truck was overloaded. He said some of the passengers were returning from a wedding ceremony, that the road had many bends, and that the truck missed a bridge and fell into the river below. Deadly traffic accidents are common in Ethiopia. Driving standards there are poor, and many vehicles are badly maintained. In 2018, at least 38 people, mostly students, were killed when a bus plunged into a ravine in Ethiopia's mountainous north.
Moving on to other news, in an interview with Russian news agency, the foreign minister of Russia, Lavrov, has said that Moscow is unhappy with the proposals reportedly made by US President-elect Donald Trump. Citing various leaks and Trump's interview with the Time magazine on December 12th, Lavrov has said Russia is not satisfied as Trump has been talking about freezing hostilities along the line of engagement and transferring further responsibility for confronting Russia to the European nations. He further added that Moscow is certainly unhappy with the proposal of Trump's team to postpone Ukraine's NATO membership for 20 years and also the deployment of European peacekeepers in Ukraine. However, the foreign minister has clarified that Moscow has not received any official communication from the United States regarding the Ukrainian settlement. Russia on Sunday vowed to retaliate after the channels of its state media were reportedly blocked on the popular social media platform Telegram in the EU. Moscow called the move an act of censorship. Neither Telegram nor EU sources have yet commented on this disruption. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged his government to collaborate with the European Commission to safeguard Europe's energy stability. Amidst tensions with Slovakia over gas transit, Zelensky confirmed Ukraine imports 19% of its electricity from Slovakia and stressed the need for cooperation with the EU to uphold energy rules.
I reviewed the details of electricity imports from the EU to Ukraine via Slovakia, accounting for about 19% of the total volume. We are working together with other neighbors in the EU. I instructed our officials to work together with the European Commission and all our European partners to maintain the stability of the unified European energy system and uphold European energy rules.
Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, after meeting Vladimir Putin in Moscow, threatened to cut electricity to Ukraine if gas flow continues.
China has unveiled the world's first mobile 5G base station, all set for deployment on the battlefield. Let's take a look at it. Jointly developed by China Mobile Communications Group and the People's Liberation Army, it provides high-speed, low-latency, and extremely secure and reliable data exchange services to at least 10,000 users within a 3-kilometer radius. Even in complex terrain such as mountains or cities, and when subjected to electromagnetic interferences, the system can maintain an uninterrupted total throughout of 10 gigabits per second and a latency of less than 15 milliseconds. The development comes as China continues to build the largest unmanned army on Earth. The drones, robot dogs, and other forms of unmanned combat platforms are expected to outnumber human soldiers on future battlefields. However, existing military communication technologies cannot meet the massive data exchange demands among thousands of robots. As part of the system, a platform has been developed that can be mounted on top of a military vehicle to house 3 to 4 drones. Now, these drones can serve as aerial base station in the absence of ground-based stations or when satellite signals are compromised. Now, if a drone's battery is about to die, it can hand over the task to another and automatically land on the vehicle's roof for charging. The military 5G also makes use of China's latest civilian technologies as of November 2024. China has built nearly 4.2 million civilian 5G base stations, far exceeding any country.
Helyes, ha először a együttérzésünket és a fájdalmunkat fejezzük ki a németországi terrorcselekmény áldozatainak családjai felé, és általában a német népnek. Velük vagyunk ebben a sajnos most már menetrendszerűen szinte minden karácsonykor megtörténő következő terrortámadásban. Ezek a jelenségek csak azóta léteznek Európában, mióta migrációs válság lett. Tehát az nem kétséges, hogy van összefüggés a Nyugat-Európában megváltozott világ, az oda beáramló migráció, különösen az illegális migráció és a terrorcselekmények között. Én látom, hogy még mindig vannak, akik ezeket az összefüggéseket tagadni próbálják, de az egyszerű tény mindenképpen tiszteletet követel, hogy kimondjuk, hogy korábban ilyesmi nem volt, most meg van. És ezért Magyarország azt a tanulságot tudja ebből levonni, hogy következetesen ki kell tartania amellett, hogy nem szabad megengedni Magyarország átalakulását egy olyan világgá, amelyben ilyesmi megtörténhet. De mindenek előtt is a németekkel vagyunk. Megnézze ezeket a képeket, amiket látunk, és azt mondja, hogy az én gyerekem is szokott menni karácsonyi vásárba, nem? Elmegy a feleségemmel, azt fölhívnak, hogy meghaltak, mert valaki... Hogy? Tehát azért nyilvánvaló, hogy amikor terrorcselekmények bekövetkeznek, akkor mindenki látja, hogy a migrációnak mi a tényleges kockázata, meg súlya. És én nem szeretném, hogyha, ahogy a terrorcselekményektől időben távolodunk, a migrációnak a súlya, következménye, felelőssége, az csökkenne az emberek fejében. Ezt Magyarországon életben akarom tartani. Lehet, hogy a migrációs nyomás időnként kisebb a magyar határon, máskor meg nagyobb, de a történelmi léptékű fenyegetés, amiben élünk, az óriás és állandó.
Az idei év egyik sláger témája volt, hogy szalagcímek szintjén az a forint árfolyama.
Tehát ezért nekünk mindig kell rendelkeznünk eszközzel, amellyel a brüsszeli törekvéseket elhárítjuk. Mert most, ha ez a magdeburgi ügy nem ebben a brüsszeli politikai közegben lenne, hanem önmagában állna, akkor mi magyarok azt mondanánk, mélyen együtt érzünk a német néppel, velük vagyunk az érzéseikben, meg az imáikban. Oldják meg ezt a problémát. Ez egy német ügy, mondanánk. Na de nem német ügy, mert Brüsszel Magdeburgot akar csinálni Magyarországba. Hát rá akarja kényszeríteni a magyarokra, és a német kormány ebben nem véd meg bennünket. Weber úr az élen jár ezzel ebben Brüsszelben. Rá akarnak erőltetni Magyarországon olyan migrációs szabályozást, aminek a kockázata kiveri a szemünket. Hát sose akarjuk ezt meg, tehát védekezni fogunk, eszközök lesznek, időnként provokatívak, máskor civilizált jogi eszközök, de mindig meg fogjuk magunkat védeni. Mert ezt nem szabad megengedni. Az új amerikai elnök majd január 20-án lép hivatalba, de mindannyian tudjuk, hogy ha csak a töredékét is megvalósítja annak, amit vállalt, akkor a világ hatalmas változások előtt áll.
1 milliárd eurót, tehát nagyjából 400 milliárd forintot.
Tehát érdemes lenne Európának rájönnie arra, hogy egy új realitásban fogunk élni hamarosan. Teljesen megváltozott a nyugati világon belüli erőviszony, új dolgok fognak történni, olyasmik, amikről korábban még nem is álmodtunk, legfeljebb mi magyarok álmodtunk. Teljesen más lesz a nyugati világ hozzáállása a migrációhoz, a családvédelemhez és a hagyományos értékekhez.